Let's get chilly. Hello and welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill, Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Kane.
And we're down to the last week in the regular season. Playoffs are right around the corner. All playoff spots are clinched. I don't believe all seeding is clinched, but in the Central Division it is. And we're here. So in a way, these next two games that the Wind Chill play don't really matter, but they do matter. We're going to talk about why they do matter. But let's get into it. Before we can even look ahead, let's look back a little bit. And talk about the Madison game. The Wind Chill beat Madison Radicals at home, 16-13. Nice bounce back game from the Chicago Union the week prior. And as we know, we talked about, and it's official now that they won, that it will be a preview of the first round of the playoffs when Madison Radicals come back to Minnesota in just a couple weeks to play that first round here at Seafoam Stadium. So it's gonna be exciting to host them again. Yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on that Madison Radicals game?
Yeah, so I think the game itself was, I think, a good, like you said, preview to what's going to come up. However, I think we played worse in that game than I expect us to play in the what's it called, the
The
division
first round.
semifinals. Yeah,
Yeah.
the first round. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I couldn't think of the word for playoffs for a second there. Um, and I think that the Madison Minnesota matchup, I feel a lot more confident in than the Minnesota Chicago matchup. And so it was good to get another win under that belt and just kind of get more security.
Yeah, I totally agree with Kane. And hearing that Minnesota didn't play as good. I think specifically Minnesota's defense actually wasn't all that great. Um, Not that, they played poorly, they had more breaks and ended up winning the game. But, a stat we frequently bring up is that Minnesota forces opposing teams to throw more. And, Minnesota threw almost 100 more passes than Madison in the game against them. So that's sort of like the
Wow.
inverse of what we expect or have come to expect from Minnesota.
That's a good stat to bring up. That's surprising. And that's kind of, yeah, my question is, do we think that was like an offensive thing for the Wind Chill? Like, was the offense not clicking? Because I think that's what we kind of saw against the Union. Do we think they kind of carried that from the Union game? Do we think Madison defense threw something that we weren't ready for? Like, what kind of led to that? And like even I was looking at turnovers. They had 18 turnovers, which was middle of the pack. I thought that was a lot, but actually was pretty standard, pretty average for their season. So it's not like they were committing a ton more turnovers. It was a pretty average game in that regard. So I wonder what was going on there.
Honestly, to me, it felt like a confidence thing going into the start of the game there. I was reading one of the articles that Evan Lepler had wrote from the weekend or from the weekend here. And he had a quote from James Pollard about how there was like a momentum shift after the Justin Burnett toe tap. And then it was
Hmm.
closely followed by a really big block on the next play by James Pollard. And he brought up a really good point about how that momentum got the fans back into it and it got the players recommitted to the game, recommitted to their style of frisbee. And so I think like Chicago really, like I've said before, just kind of disassembles our style. And it just took us a second to get back to playing Minnesota frisbee against Madison. But we found our feet, and I think that gives us some good momentum. Like I said, going into Salt Lake, going into the playoffs here.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like taking it quarter by quarter. Sometimes I will sometimes throw up a chart of, in color code, like who scores what quarter. And the first quarter was tied 2-2. At the second quarter, it was still very close, 4-3. Like in that quarter, Radicals scored four, Winchell scored three, which put the Radicals up at half. As we know, they're up by one. In the next two quarters, Winchell outscored them 11-7. And that was the difference in the game. So they really did step up. I don't remember honestly when that toe tap was, when that momentum shift was. But if I'd have to guess just based on those stats, I would say the second half, just because, yeah, that seemed like they really picked it up. And yeah, correct me if anyone knows exactly where that
I think it
momentum
was
shift
third
happened. But
quarter. I'm pretty sure. Let us know in the comments.
yeah, I should have had that clip up because that was crazy. That
Retroactive.
was
That was a great
insane.
play.
Yeah.
Like the awareness to switch the footwork That
Yeah.
was really good. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Also, if you go back and like freeze frame it, it's like a quarter second, not even, where his toe is down and the disc is in his hand. Like that
Mhm.
is,
The timing was perfect.
yes. Yeah, it was picture perfect. Literally picture perfect.
Yeah. Justin Burnett, if you're listening, gotta get you on the pod sometime. For
I say
real.
it's a do or die play where like maybe he wasn't even expecting to make it. Like obviously I think he wanted to make it, but it was like he had one shot. Maybe he was gonna be a foot out, maybe not. But like you got to get your toe down. He knows like he has to have that field awareness, the wherewithal to be like, no matter what happens, my toe has to touch the ground. And I don't think it
Hmm.
was all luck by any means, but I think part of it was luck. Like yeah, you were just in the line for a quarter of a second, but that was I mean it took a lot of skill to get him to do that. That was
Yeah,
sweet.
100%.
I mean, yeah, do you want to continue with playoff picture? So that's kind of the preview or the recap, and unless we have any other thoughts. I mean, again, good crowd. I guess I wasn't in the crowd, but it felt like a good crowd. It felt like kind of that classic Madison, Minnesota rivalry feel. It's going to be even more exaggerated during playoffs. Like that's going to be a crazy environment. Um, so yeah, and they beat the wind chill beat the attendance record from the previous game they had set earlier in the season by one person, uh, which is pretty sweet. So shout out to the fans for showing up. Like it's so awesome
Shout
to
out
see
to
you
that one
guys.
guy who decided to go because his friend invited
Like,
him. Thank you.
right? That's awesome. Um, but yeah, so maybe shifting our thoughts to previewing the playoffs a little bit. As a reminder, we'll stick with Central. Boys, if you want to talk about other divisions as you seem interested, feel free. But let's just stick with Central really quick. Um, the Wind Chill will host Madison Radicals. I don't know if we know I mean, I'm sure the date's out there, but I didn't get a chance to look before the playoff spot seeded for 2025. I'm gonna look live really quick.
Yeah, I have no clue what the
Uh,
actual date is. Yeah.
no, it does. There's no dates at least immediately visible. Um, but the Wind Chill will host the Radicals at home. It's usually late July. It's usually like maybe the week after the
Well,
regular
I
season
would say
or
it's probably going to
two.
be August 2nd then. Just looking at a calendar right now because that's the
Sure,
first Saturday. Because this Saturday is the 19th, and then next Saturday would be the 26th of July, and
which it
then the
could be.
next. So it could be the immediate
So
following Saturday. It could be.
because then they like to build in that bye week after, like, well, that is the bye week.
Right. And then
Yeah,
the first week of playoffs would probably be August 2nd then, if I had to
Yeah,
guess.
then the week after the ninth is the
Champions,
yeah, the,
I
the
Division
division championship,
Championship,
then they do a bye week, then it's
and then
championship
Championship
weekend.
weekend. That makes sense. Okay.
it could, but potentially, I'm just saying. I'm pretty sure last year I remember like it being like the week because I think we had the bye. It was like the week after regular season ended.
Hmm. I could see that.
Um,
Yeah. Either way,
so like
we
they
don't
might have
know.
two weeks in between that,
How do
the
we not
seeding
know?
and I mean, yeah, right. Either way, it's so close. It's either 1 week or 2 weeks away, and they're still not out. Um, all that to say, no, we want to win that game because then we're going to travel to Chicago, or the winner of that game will be traveling to Chicago for the Central Division Championship. And we won't preview it too much. We want to give that its own whole episode. But again, that's a game that we've played twice now in the last 5 years and have lost pretty in unfortunate circumstances both times. And so that's a game that's going to be like circled and exclamation pointed and starred on everyone's calendar. So that's going to be a big game again, especially coming off of what just happened in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and then championship weekend.
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to think about championship weekend right now.
I mean, it feels like it's so far away, and yet it's only about a month away. It's a month and a half. And playoffs are yeah just around the corner, so it's gonna be a good time. And fans show up like you did last week with Madison here. Madison's coming right back, and that's gonna be a huge game because as we know, Madison fans travel very well. It's gonna be almost a home game for them, at least in terms of their fans. So it really matters that we're in the stands. We pack those stands. Let's blow that attendance record out of the water. That's gonna be a good one. Any last thoughts on Madison? We've been talking a lot about Madison Radicals before we move on to this upcoming week. There's two games. You have a weekend doubleheader, one away, one home game.
I don't think so. Are we gonna spend more time on like Central Division playoffs, or I guess,
We're
yeah,
gonna
because
give it. We're gonna give a whole
we're gonna
episode
give
to
the
that.
Chicago one for sure as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
I guess it's just it's almost hard to care about this upcoming weekend, even though it is a marquee matchup
I
against Salt
agree.
Lake. And we'll talk about that in a second. But like, yeah, I'm just really excited to have another playoff game at home. Hopefully, build some momentum and get that Chicago game. But we'll get there when we
I
get
do. I do want to add one fun stat point um, to the whole Central Division playoffs. The opponent O-line conversions. This is how many times your opponent scores on the offensive line per attempt. Um, the three lowest, so the three teams that are best at forcing the most turnovers per point or forcing O-lines to play the worst, are in order: Chicago Union, the Minnesota Wind Chill, and the Madison Radicals. So we can expect in the Central Division playoffs a lot of messy holds, dirty holds, and probably a lot of break scores as well because those three teams have some of the best defenses in the league.
And that's in is the order of the seeding too, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's just like O-line conversion percentage. I mean,
Right.
hold conversion percentage is the same.
Yeah.
Huck's opponent Huck percentage is the same.
Hmm.
Um, so like in terms of defensive stats, the Central Division is like top tier in all of them.
That's pretty
everyone
fun.
thinks Central Division games are always bad, but it's just Central Division defenses are always good.
I was gonna say, do people think they're bad games, or or people think they're just bad teams out of division? I don't know. Like, it's like, are they really good against each other? Then when it gets out of division, they're like, oh no, I don't want to watch Central Division because it's a Central Division game. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Central Division is like I think 5-3 this year out of division.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, they're
Like
at
they
least
did
2
pretty
and
good
0
this
I'm
against
year.
six and
Atlanta.
three.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the out of division game. So quick, just like real high level or preview. The Wind Chill are traveling to Salt Lake. They're going back to championship weekend, where they won championship weekend 2024, to face the Shred. And then they're going to come home, finish the season against the Detroit Mechanics on Sunday. Be there. It's fan appreciation. It's going to be awesome. No offense to Detroit. No offense to the last home game of the season. We're not going to talk about that almost at all tonight, uh, because the shred game is going to be huge. Kane, you talked about momentum, gaining momentum from going into Madison, or like facing Madison and then getting into Chicago. I think this weekend can be the momentum. Even though we kind of want to skip over, I know you kind of said like, well, let's skip over this weekend and get to the playoffs. I think that's exactly what this weekend could be, is that slingshot that just flings us forward. Especially on the road, an out of division game on the road is like, I feel like they're almost going to take this as seriously as traveling to championship weekend. Like, and this is the team. Remember, this is a huge rematch. This is against the team who we lost to an overtime championship weekend. Our first time we ever went to championship weekend, and we were just stunned in the stands. The like, I can't even like articulate
Dude,
what
my
what we
heart.
witnessed there, man.
I think I like shed a singular tear, just like
It still
just
hurts.
disbelief. All right, I can't even. Joe Clinton. Anyway, all right,
You know that clip is going to be used so much in the next week, like leading
oh,
up, or like
the
in the next
hype
couple of
for
days
the
leading up to it, which
yeah.
it is hype. That was a crazy game. That was one of the best ultimate games ever to be played. Like,
Yeah.
if you're just a
Uh,
fan
Hands
of the
down.
game, or if you want to be introduced to the game, watch that game. No matter who you're cheering for, even as a Winchell fan, it's like that's a thing of beauty right there. That's a great game.
yeah, it's basketball has like the hardwood classics or whatever they're called. Like that's the Frisbee Classic. That
Yeah.
might be the greatest game of ultimate Frisbee ever played. The way it happened, how it unfolded, Minnesota being the underdogs but leading through most of it, like the crowd at just 10 out of 10 all the way down.
Dylan the clerk like waving the shirt or whatever in
Yeah, the
front of us.
energy, like, it was
Yeah. Oh my
incredible. It
goodness,
was
bro.
something else. If you weren't
Hype.
there and you just like saw it, is like, yeah, it was
The
so
venue
good.
was hype as well. Like that's like
Everyone there was on their feet screaming, like
Yeah.
yeah.
everyone, like
I don't even think
90-year-old
anybody knew
grandmas from
what to cheer
Austin were
for.
there. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So
So that's the context going into next this
right, this
week.
game has a lot of weight behind it for sure. And I think
Yeah.
yeah, I think all three of us are pretty big Salt Lake fans as well, right? I mean, relatively speaking, not like
Yeah.
fans, but Jay, I know you like them a lot,
It's
right?
fun to watch. They're fun to watch.
Mhm. Yeah. So I and I really like their system. I like the coaching. I like a lot of the players are really good. I like a lot of the yeah, just like their energy and stuff. So yeah, it's always a good game. Jeff, to your what you said earlier, um, I do like as a fan kind of want to just pass by it, but then you kind of reminded me like,
Hmm.
yeah, you're right. Like this is a very exciting game. It really could set the wind chill up to have confidence. And I think if they like the Pollard quote earlier, if they have confidence earlier on and if they're able to execute earlier on, then they don't fall behind to Chicago in the first quarter and they don't lose those
Hmm.
games.
Right. Yeah, and the Shred are a team you have to have confidence against. I mean, they're very much like Chicago, not necessarily in their play style, although I mean maybe, but in their juggernaut approach, in their unity as a team. I remember there was a quote floating around. Maybe it was from Jordan Kerr, maybe it was from the Salt Lake Shred coach at the beginning of the season before the team was even announced. He said like there's not any returning players. Every player is trying out this year for the team because there's no guarantee. There's no like, oh yeah, Jordan Kerr, who's a staple on the team. It's like he's not like rostered yet because they're humble, they're hungry, and they all want to earn that spot and be on the same team. It's not like, like and that just shows I think what kind of team that is and what you have to do like to go up against them because you also have to be hungry, humble, no point given, nothing is like everything is earned. Um, and yeah, this could very well be a championship weekend preview.
Hmm.
I
Especially-
truly hope it is because, like Kane said, we are big fans of the Salt Lake Shred. Although I kind of hope it isn't because I'm a bigger fan of the Spiders. Um, but Jeff, you were saying how the Shred and the Union kind of might have similar play styles. They sort of do, um, but I think where the Union are more aggressive to attack, the Shred are more patient, and that's seen. They have like a I think they're seventh in completion percentage, but like 0.1% out of top six, and like half a percent out of like top three. So they're up there in completion percentage. They have one of the higher huck percentages in the league, fifth highest in huck percentages. They have the highest hold percentage, so they are a very clean team.
no.
They also have the highest O-line conversion percentage. Those two usually go hand in hand,
Yep.
not completely, but they don't turn it over a lot on offense
Say, what
either.
are their turnovers per game? Yeah.
Yeah, so their O-line conversion percentage is at 64%, and their D-line is at 80%. So D-line's not as good. They're bottom half of the league, but their O-line is their bread and butter
I
versus,
was gonna say, I feel like I feel like Chicago is a very O-line heavy team as well. And when I think of the Shred, I don't know the Shred. Like I've admitted on the pod before, I don't really watch a lot of West League games, West Division games. But when I think of the Shred, I don't think of their defense. Um, and so yeah, like I think they have to. It's nice that we have seen Chicago twice now, and it's nice that we're gonna go see the Shred, similar in offensive like strength. Um, and in that regard, like we can kind of do some informal keys to the game. We didn't have like set keys to the game this week, but like forcing turns, forcing throws, and forcing turns. We said this all year, but like the Winchell are so good at forcing throws and constantly putting pressure on handlers, preventing deep cuts, and that's going to be absolutely key, especially in altitude. Again, what happened when Winchell traveled out to Colorado a couple years ago, went to altitude and just like fell apart. They crumbled at the foundation. I don't know, and we don't know if it really was altitude or not. Whatever, you can attribute it to a lot of things, um, but that was a big thing that did affect their play style.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a really interesting matchup. Like I know you guys both, but Jay especially likes to play the stats kind of thing. So it is interesting to see the Minnesota defense against the efficient offense and kind of how that's gonna jar. I know we've all been harping a little bit this year, especially the last couple of weeks now, about our offense needs to step up, and I think this game could be a really good opportunity to do that, where we might have a few more offensive looks than we're used to. We might get scored on a little bit more this time. and we might get the disc in our hands um more often on our side than at the halfway point of the field, right? We're pretty used to stopping it halfway. We're gonna have to go the full 80 yards
Hmm.
today, and I
Yep.
think we're gonna need to look to a lot of our cutters to extend that field for Minnesota and attack the space, open it up, and play confidently.
I think that for me looks like not taking as many deep looks just in general. I think they're
Hitting
going to
the
want
unders
to
for sure.
getting those unders, taking a strike when it's open. I mean, we pointed a lot to that Quinn Snyder, stall count play against Chicago, and just like where were the cutters and stuff, and he could have maybe taken a strike cut, and all these little picky things.
Right.
Um, I think the same idea goes here, and again, if you want to point to altitude, and not turning the disc over unless it's windy. If it's not windy, they can't huck it. I think if it's windy, fine, you can play that game and kind of like it was in championship weekend last year, like totally crazy conditions. You got to do what you got to do. Assuming no wind or low wind, I want to see them, yeah, really clean up those cuts, and just yeah, be a little smarter with the disc in your hands.
Mhm.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, I think for me, one of the big keys to the game is going to be sort of controlling that red zone. The
Mm,
last two games Minnesota's had, they've had bad red zone games compared to what they had been putting up early in the season. Their last two red zone games were both below 90%, so not very good. I will say Minnesota's last game against Madison, their red zone conversion rate was 87%, so still good, but that again, going into the game against Chicago, so 2 weeks ago, they had an 88%. So that's below
mm,
what was their average, what was their, rank one in the league rank.
yeah.
They're still sitting at second in the league for their red zone conversion percentage. But interestingly enough, oh wait, sorry, they're sitting at I lied. They're sitting at fourth in the league for their red zone conversion percentage. But interestingly enough, their opponent's red zone conversion percentage, they're sitting second in the league. So not only are they great on offense in the red zone, they're great at stopping opposing offenses in the red
Mm,
zone. Um, they're also good at shutting down hucks. It's they sort of where Minnesota's defense has struggled this year is in that transition, that quick transition offense that teams will often throw at them. So
right.
Minnesota, if you can shut down the hucks, really disconnect that handler and cutter layer is where they excel the most.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see a lot of big plays. I expect to see a lot of big plays on both sides, both teams and both sides of the disc. So I'm excited. This is gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be fun. Again, like traveling, it's gonna be fun to go back to Salt Lake. It's gonna be fun to play against Salt Lake, and it's gonna be a potential. I mean, even if it's not championship weekend preview, a very valuable matchup at this point in the season. And then they travel home to play Detroit Mechanics on Sunday, which again is always that's been the consistent tried and true. It's always been a home game against Detroit for the last game of the season, which is really it is fun. I mean, like it's kind of like maybe a little boring, and we do like to pick on Detroit, but it's nice for the players. It's nice for the fans just to show up, have a good game of frisbee, and get pumped for playoffs. And it is fan appreciation, and so I think that it's just a good opportunity. Yeah, let's show out. Let's kind of preview our playoff presence in the stands and send the wind chill off to go back to Seafoam Stadium to come back. But um, yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a good weekend. If I'm not mistaken, I know we've been talking about this. Yeah, so Salt Lake game is actually on Friday. It's Friday night frisbee, and then Sunday is the Mechanics game. So it's not back-to-back games. They do have a travel day in there. So watch that. I believe that's on YouTube. I believe their Friday night frisbees are on YouTube at UFA. So definitely tune in for that, and let's go chill. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, just talk about the Central Division a little bit as a whole.
Yeah.
Not sort of like recapping this year. The Central Division has really come down to looking like a three-team league with the Alley
Yeah.
Cats, the Thunderbirds, and the Mechanics. I want to say all having 8 losses already. I'm not exactly sure on that, but
Uh,
yeah, they all have at least eight
yeah.
losses. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, and like realistically, Detroit has looked poised to beat the Alley Cats, and they did beat the Thunderbirds. Like
Hmm.
it's starting to become a Detroit's getting better, but also the Alley Cats and Thunderbirds have really fallen by the wayside. Those are starting to become pretty easy wins for the top three teams in the Central Division. So I think, going forward in future years, how are we looking at like other teams in the Central Division? Are we really only going to be game planning for, Madison and the Union, or do you think the Chill are still going to be game planning to beat the Thunderbirds and beat the Mechanics and beat the Alley Cats?
Right. Well, I mean, I will say one thing real quick. Thunderbirds did beat Minnesota last year. Cannot ignore that. Um, you can put asterisks next to it all you want, but they did beat us. Um, I would also, I'm curious about the like fluctuations of all the teams. Like even last year they weren't really competitive, but 2 years ago the Alley Cats were pretty competitive. I mean, was it 2 years ago that we played them in the Central Division Championship game? So how do you
Hmm.
fall from grace so far in such a short amount of time? Um,
You lose your five best players.
but they didn't do that all in a year. Cam Brock still played with them last year. I think Xavier Payne played with them last year. I don't know what happened last year. Point being though, I don't know if it's fair to say the Alley Cat. I wouldn't necessarily loop them in. I think it's just inconsistent. I think that's what the division is. It's maybe not like not competitive, and I know that's not what exactly you said, but I think year to year you just don't know who's actually going to be good. And then yeah, it shakes out really quickly, like in the first 3 weeks. Then you do realize who's good and bad, and then yeah, like you start game planning and penciling in those wins, and not quite skipping over them, but just about looking to the next week, to the next more competitive game.
I do want to bring up one point about the Alley Cats last year. They were one win against Chicago. I think they lost by 2 points. They were three total goals off from making the playoffs last year. So they were still a good
Right,
team last year. Like
right.
there were four competitive teams last year, really.
Well, and then even again, remember Chicago last year and the year before wasn't really that competitive. Like we still had to play them pretty well, and like I think they get did beat us once at home, but it's not like they were a 10-0 team going into the last week of the division with like looking like a freaking dominant championship team. Because right now, again, we can argue this, we can say they're not good. You can't really argue with the 10-0 record. They are looking like a championship team right now. They are. Um, how does that happen after a year and 2 years not being competitive just like that? Like, they snap their fingers and bam. It's just crazy to me. Again, it's so inconsistent year to year, which is
They brought in
fun,
four really good
but
players.
right. Yeah, they did. Yeah.
To be fair, Minnesota
And
did bring in,
Pavlianis.
yeah, and see, that's how you trash talk, Pavel. I know you're not listening, but if you're listening to the pod, that's how you trash talk. Oh man.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting point though. Like what does the division look like in years to come? What does the league as a whole look like? What do we do about Detroit? It's the perennial question.
What do we do about Detroit?
They have won a game in both of their last 2 years.
Sell the team to
It's
Vegas.
true. It's true. And
Can't even schedule a playoff.
they have never finished a season with a winning record. They've never even finished 500 if I'm not mistaken.
Is that? I'm
That's true.
checking. I'm going back and checking every
I
single.
I've looked, you go in their history, do it off pod because we got to wrap up. But it's true. They've never won with the winning record. I don't know about the 500 record, but I'm almost positive
That's unfortunate.
it is. Yeah, it's bad.
Good try.
Um, anything else? Anything else about Madison game last weekend? Madison game coming up. Salt Lake Mechanics game. Any of that? Kane, Jay?
I'm just excited to watch some frisbee.
It's gonna be a really fun weekend. Okay, well, we will see you all in the YouTube chat on Friday night. Be there. We'll be there with our windshield talk, so shout us out. And then we'll see you in the stands at Seafoam Stadium on Sunday for fan appreciation. I believe that's an afternoon game. Let me pull that up really quick. No, it's a 5 p.m. game. So it's not our normal 6 o'clock. It's an hour earlier. So be there, and then let's get ready for playoffs. Stay chilly and ka chow.
Good
Stay
chow.
chilly.
Stay tuned.
Ka-chow.